Good day everyone. We are the last group, and for today's video we tackle about global food security. So what is a global food security? It is a refer to the availability and accessibility of an individual to get sufficient quantity of food that is reliable and affordable to the individual. Why is global food security is important? It helps to enhance the productivity and consecutively the production of food. It can assist in providing opportunities for income generation, and it generally provides improvement of nutritional advice through home economics programs and enhances the quality of rural life by a way of community development. Which best describe global food security? Food security, as defined by the United Nations Committee on World Food Security, means that all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their food preferences and dietary needs for an active and healthy life. What are the factors that influence global food security? First, climate. Second, technology. Third, loss of farmland. Fourth, pests and diseases. Fifth, water stress. Sixth, conflict. And last, poverty. So what is climate? Global warming is increasing temperature by around 0.2 Celsius every 10 years. Rainfall is increasing in some places but decreasing in others. Higher temperature and unreliable rainfall makes farming difficult, especially for those farming marginal lands who already struggle to survive. Even advanced countries can be affected by drought. Countries such as Russia, Australia are hog exporters of wheat and barley respectively. When they suffer drought, there is less food available globally and global food prices increase, leaving the poor most vulnerable. So what is technology? Improvements in technology have increased the amount of food available. Technology can overcome temperature, water, and nutrients deficiencies in the form of greenhouses, irrigation, and fertilizers. This can incur the economic or environmental costs. Access important food from across the globe all year around. So what is loss of farmland? The growth of biofuel market is taking up valuable farmland which is then not used for food. So what is pests and diseases? Pesticides have increased crop yields. Farmers in ACES can afford pesticides, whereas most farmers in low-income developing countries cannot afford them. So what is water stress? Irrigation systems provide water for countries with unreliable or low rainfall. Irrigation can double crop yields, but it is expensive to put this system in place. Water can be taken either from underground aquifers or directly from rivers. Both have environmental consequences. So what is conflict? War forces farmers to flee their land or to fight in conflict. Food can be used as a weapon, with enemies cutting off food supplies in order to gain ground. Crops can also be destroyed during fighting. Food shortage have caused riots and conflict. The South Sudan region has faced conflict for years, with 4 million people facing food insecurity. In the Darfur area, conflict has lasted years because of disagreement over land and grazing rights. So what is poverty? When people have less money, they cannot afford food and they become unable to work. Families in developing countries spend much of their income on food.
Causes of food security. First is natural disasters. Drought, floods, typhoons, cyclones, and other natural disasters can wipe out an entire harvest or destroy crops. This is devastating, most especially to rural communities and families who generally rely on such harvest and staple small-scale farming for their daily food. Unfair trade rules. The ways in which large corporations do business with local food producers are largely unfair and do not reward farmers for the worth of their labor or produce. Better reduced, farmers could get food supply contracts, but small-scale farmers often works as labor on contracted farms. Such as practices contribute further food insecurity, especially to the small-scale farmers and those who are not financially stable. Fast-paced population growth. We live in the world where, despite the rates of deaths, the birth rate are higher. The growing population means there are extra mouths to feed daily. The rise of population, while limited growth in the food available, means an increased food insecurity. Conflict, violence, and wars. Conflict, wars, and violence impact food production and supplies. In most countries where civil wars has been prevalent over the years, food insecurity is very high as the war is very high. As the war disrupts production and export processes, these essential commodities are becoming less and less available. Global access to oil and gas has been significantly reduced. Much of the world's wheat and corn and barley remains in Ukraine and Russia. Lack of access to farming lands. Food is grown or produced by the land is doing so income is also generated. However, many people do not have their own land or cannot afford to have access to farmable land. Land ownership strengthens agricultural productivity and it can cost to produce a variety of food crops even a small scale level. Without access to the farming land, however, it means the lack of a key reduced for producing food crops. Land grabbing. It is closely related to the point above or the land of access to the farming lands. Land grabbing is when land traditionally owned or farmed by families or groups or communities that is taken away from them by large investors or essential government officials. They acquire the land to expand their empires, extract natural resources, or even grow food for export. Land grabbing deprives local communities of the resources they desperately require to grow food crops and vegetables for survival. The ultimate outcome is poverty and social instability, which further worsen food insecurity. So, see also climate change now takes the space or takes the shape of a health emergency.
So, hello everyone. The next topic is the consequences of global food security. Food insecurity. The condition of not having access to sufficient food or food of an adequate quality to meet one's basic needs. Food security speaks to the availability of food in a country and the ability of individuals within that country to access, afford, and source adequate foodstuff. So kaning food insecurity is kaning na sa gibutan na dili nga kanang condition not having access to sufficient food. So wala kayo nga kanang nga makuha nga food no. So kanang decrease ang food nga mabahin sa usa ka country. So mo na sa food insecurity. So wala kanang di nila ma-access ba ang full nga unsay need sa usa ka country. Example kanang need sa usa country kay kanang taas-taas nga pagkaon para masupplyan ng usa ka mga kanang ng mga tao sa usa ka country. So mo decrease siya. So mo na siya ang food insecurity. So causes and effect to food insecurity. Lack of access to farming lands. Food is grown or produced from the land. In doing so, incomes also generated. However, many people do not have their own land or cannot afford to have access to farmable land. Land ownership strengthens agricultural productivity as it can be used to produce a variety of food crops even a small scale level. So kaning lack of access to farmlands, kung nunaw na to kay asa magid kanang nagsugod atong mga food, diba sa farms man no, di kanang kapasa ng bugas, di mo ta nagkuha og mga sa farm. So kung lack ang kung ang farmers is lack di kay sila makakuha sa field or kanang mga ilang yuta nila, so makakuha kita sa kanang ato pagkaon mo decrease kita mo nang ang uban mahal kayo bugas mo na siya. Land grabbing. Land grabbing is when land traditionally owned or farmed families or groups or communities is taken away from them by large investors or influential government officials. They acquire the land to expand their empires, extract natural resources, or even grow food for export. Land grabbing deprives local communities of the resources they desperately require to grow food crops and vegetables for survival. So kanang land grabbing is kanang bitong mga yuta nya kanang kanang kwaon sa mga kuan bitaw kanang mga dagko nga officials bitaw nya yang ang kuno nya motong sila na matag-iya motong kanang ilang ipataas ang presyo nga mo na siya nga grabe kanang nay mga lain nga bonus bitaw nga mukuha ang land or paliton baron ano. Conflict, violence, and wars. Conflict, wars, and violence impact food production and supplies. In most countries where civil war has been prevalent over the years, food insecurity is very high. So kuha naman mo itong karon no katong sa Russia diba no o Ukraine. So usa may nitabo ato diba na ni mahal ang ang gas. So more sa example na siya. So ang gas na ni mahal diba mahal kayo. So mo na may tabo kung karang mga violence o wars, kung sa usa ka country na wars, ang kuan na mga prices sa uban na or asa man ta nagkuha ana or sa ibang bansa man ta nagkuha mga product ana mutaas gyud na siya ang mga presyo ana. Unfair trade rules. The way in which large corporations do business with local food producers are largely unfair and do not reward farmers for the worth of their labor or produce. Better resources farmers could get food supply contracts, but small-scale farmers will often work as labor contractor farms. So kanang unfair trade rules is kanang di ba kung makaingon tag farmers, di mo maingon nga kanang dato, di ba? Makaingon jud ta kanang di sa ingon pobre pero nagid sa ubos-ubos no. So mo na siya ang unfair nga trade rules. Ang kanang mga dagko nga farmers o kanang mga kuan nga farmers mo siya murag mas taas kaysa sa kuan no. Gagmay nga farmers nga kuan. So dapat unta is kanang fair. Kung unsay makuan sa gamay mo sa makuan no dako para mas mo improve ang atong kuan sa food security nato. Fast-paced population growth. We live in a world where despite the rates of deaths, the birth rates are higher. So kanang fast-paced population growth, so murag ka relate naman tani no atong population daghan na jud kita. So kung daghan na kita population, mas mutagan ang needs mas mutagan ang atong kinahanglan nga mga food. So magkaanam tagkadako sa growth population nga magamay nga atong kuan atong mga farmlands. Yung sa na nato pagkuan ng uban nya karon kabon takaron nga mga bundok na to isipang pagpahak na. So mo na siya tungod sa atong kanang population growth decrease ni kuha na atong food insecurity. Natural disasters. Drought, food, typhoon, cyclones, and other natural disasters can wipe out entire harvest or destroy crops. So kaning natural disasters kanang mga bagyo, ulan, baha. So mao dyan ang pinaka-dakong problema sa mga farmers nato, no? Basta mag-ulan, baha. May mga daot ang atong mga atong tanom. Climate change. Changes in climate patterns have permanently affected agriculture. Farmers are experiencing the effects of climate change as rains are coming in earlier than before and droughts are lasting longer. Fresh water is also scarcer as a result of rising sea levels. Storm surge cyclones and other strong weather events which are more frequent. So climate change, kung ano ba ang climate change? So climate change mo na sige na daw buwan, taas na buwan, tig-init sad, tugay sa kayo mawag init sa kayo. So mga na siya kanang di matarong atong climate mo nang ang atong mga tanom sa farmers na to guys, di sa katarong og tubo, di sa katarong og kanang kuano pamunga or kanang ka-harvest. So mga na siya. Thank you.
Hi sir, good morning. I'm Karanga Usa from the IT Food Hospital and I'm here to report about the triple burden in global society. To meet food security goals in today's world, we must consider the stresses on food systems, rising demand for food driven by the population growth and dietary change, along with the effects of climate change and environmental problems, have compounded what is known as a triple burden of malnutrition. About 1 billion people consume too few calories and at least 3 billion don't have sufficient nutrients, and 2.5 billion consume too much. These three burdens often coexist in the same community and even household. They are the central challenges to securing food security for all. But unlike some past obstacles to food security, the triple burden cannot be addressed by increasing food production alone. Many development programs targeting food insecurity focus on calories and fail to register undernourishment. That is, the lack of nutrients in one's diet. Malnourished is more closely related to consumption patterns of calories and nutrients, that is, to any lack of available food. Major determinants of consumption include food preferences, cultural norms, cooking skill, and convenience. The increased availability and affordability of processed, high-energy foods for the emerging global middle class, coupled with the aspirations of many to consume a more Western diet, in making diet-related disease a global pandemic. Obesity has become a relatively common ailment in rich countries, including the United States and Europe. However, obesity rates are now rising in developing countries as incomes rise and consumers shift their demand for certain foods. Food security efforts have long focused on food and nutrient supply, but to effectively combat today's growing burden of overconsumption, we must consider demand. That means focusing on changing consumption patterns by analyzing the whole food system to find the root causes of malnutrition. A greater focus on demand can productively address the triple burden malnutrition, but likely won't eliminate it. These are complex system problems. Each actor involved in a global food system has their own motivations and modes of interaction, and any intervention will create winners or losers. Costs and benefits must be considered within different time frames, geographies, and jurisdictions when developing new food system policies and practices. While complicated solutions based on this approach to food system thinking, they will ensure public health, greater resilience, and sustainability moving forward.